Good morning, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I see you. I'm Suzanne Castle, creator and founder of the Sparkle Factor. I'm glad that you're here to spend 10 minutes or less, probably today, really working on yourself, aligning what's going on in here to the actions out here. That's what we do here at the Sparkle Factor HQ. And I'm glad that I'm here to support you. Did you know that April is Stress Awareness Month? She tried to say. And along the way, I know that we maybe struggle with, is this stress? Is this burnout? Am I on the burnout bus? Am I really just overstressed? Am I healthily stressed, meaning that I'll take some action because I'm feeling a little bit of that? And it's hard to know, right? It's hard to know what is healthy stress, what is bad stress, what is even stressful burnout. Well, that's what we're going to cover here today. But first and foremost, let me know that you're here. Drop a little comment. Let me know if you're catching us live, catching us on replay, however you are. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I would love that as well. So in 2016, so way before the pandemic, so know that all of these figures will be a little bit different because the pandemic has exposed some kind of holes in this system. But there was a 2016 research review that suggested that burnout isn't necessarily separate from what we know as chronic stress, but it's at the very far end of the stress continuum. So you can think about this: there's healthy stress, then there's not healthy, I don't feel good stress, then there's stressed out, chronic stress, and then burnout, right? So it's on a continuum, and you go back to back, like you weave in and out depending on what is going on in your actual life. And there's some things that talk about stress versus distress, right? DIS, stress versus distress. So let's just like have a common definition of what stress is and isn't. Stress is really, it refers to your body's ability to respond to internal or external pressure. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less, right? Internal and external pressure. So its purpose in having a stressful response is to prepare you, right? Could be a challenge, could be change making, and that can be negative, that can be positive, right? So you want to be thinking about a response, right? So under stress, responses can be healthy and positive and move you towards action, or they can keep you stuck. And as you know, here at the Sparkle Factor HQ, stress is never the furthest that we can go. So we definitely want to be alert to what those stressors are so that we are using it in a good way to help us achieve something big and great. For example, a project deadline can lead you to focus, right? That's a healthy form of stress, right? But in other cases, a stress response can lead you to overwhelm, right? We hear a lot about that in the news right now, which can lead to unable to cope, or you cocoon, you cave, and that is distress, right? So we want to know the difference between stress and distress. So stress can be healthy. Distress is a negative reaction to that. And when you experience one or the other, it really depends on several factors, including your interpretation of the stress or the stressful event, your emotional resources. Do you have potential for support? Is it short or long term, right? So I think about reactivating a workout program, and you're on the treadmill and you're doing all the things and you feel a little under stress, you're a little out of breath, right? Your body is under a stressful existence to keep up and not fall off the treadmill. That's an okay form of stress, right? But chronic stress and burnout are in a whole different category in and of itself. So when you're exposed to what we call persistent stress, so there's persistent stressors, you could experience what medically is known as chronic stress, especially if you're not managing your stress from the beginning. So this chronic stress is really more of the recurring, the never ending stressors that are leading you to live in that. And burnout then is part of that. Burnout is a considered form of prolonged distress. Now, this really came in 2003 is really when research began to pay attention to this. And it really is that response to long-term emotional and interpersonal stressors. That can be on the job, that can be in your life. It is not only workplace and it's not only personal life, right? Many areas have prolonged stressors that are present. And so I want you to think about stress, high stress, burnout stress is really that constant vigilance, living at that place where there's this constant need for decision making and it's urgent, right? That urgency kind of lifts up all of the stressor response, both physically and mentally. So really that leads to sensory overwhelm is what kind of your brain understands it as. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're experiencing burnout, but that you're in this elevated state of stress. So, as the video said, we want to know, is this chronic stress, which could be healthy or not healthy, or is it burnout, right? So let me give you some similarities, and let's see how many of these that you might actually have. Chronic stress and burnouts can have some physical effects. So they look similar, like headaches. You could have changes in your sleep patterns. Maybe you've got fatigue, heart palpitations, right? That's something that comes up a lot for people. A shortness of breath when you're speaking, when you're walking, right? You could have gut response to chronic stress or healthy stress or burnout related stress. There's some muscle tension, especially up here in your neck, especially if you're like this all the time, you're holding on to things really, your muscles will respond differently. So that muscle tension, which then can lead to a weakened immune system. But mentally, it also affects you if you're in a stress mode. Remember, healthy, chronic, burnout. So things like anxiety, stress can also lead to depression, that cocooning, that caving that we were talking about early. There's irritability. There's difficulty learning because you have trouble concentrating. When you have trouble concentrating, you get forgetful, right? Things seem harder. You might have like bouts of crying spells for no good reason. You're not really sure. Also, when you're in this state, you have low impulse control. So that's when addiction can pop up in a really negative way. So we really want to understand what is our own personal response so that then we know things like burnout is overwhelming exhaustion. Not I'm exhausted for this week because I'm dealing with a deadline and I know I'm going to get a little sleep because I didn't prepare well. That's different than overwhelming exhaustion. Also, burnout shows up in cynicism or detachment, meaning that I'm in this workplace or I'm in this personal drama right now, and I'm just detached from it. And I'm kind of cynical that it's ever going to get better. I think this is just the way it is. We see a lot of this popping up in kind of the world as we've emerged out of COVID, and just all that disconnect from our social EQ that happened in those 2 years really has allowed people this sense of detachment, right? And so we definitely want to be paying attention to that. And then also this sense of not being productive. So remember, healthy stress can push you to finish, right? It can push you to do something. That's a good thing. But when you're on burnout status, that's not productiveness, right? You can't even get to the place of doing something, accomplish something, or being effective in something. So low work engagement, like feeling detached from purpose, having disintegration, right? I don't even care anymore. That may point to more burnoutness than stress. Okay. So we really want to understand what the difference is. And burnout, honestly, is impairing. It's an impairing condition, which will lead to kind of downward spiralness, emotional turmoil. So it's not to be taken lightly. This is a medical condition. All right. So to help you manage, I want to give you a few brief tips. And you can always go to SuzanneCastle.com for more. There's freebies on there to help you kind of priority manage, how to ask yourself better questions, SuzanneCastle.com. So, obviously you want to practice grounding exercises, whatever that means to you. That could mean that you want to take focused, deep breaths, right? I am a big believer in taking a break and going for a walk, because that forces your brain to activate a different response in your body, a physical response from what is swirling up and making you like this. So a quick and easy activation is change the location, walk outside the office, walk outside the door, do a 5-minute quick, like I'm going to walk outside, and see if that doesn't reset yourself. Obviously, if you have a pet around, they can definitely help in burnout and chronic stress, fatigue. They can release some of that for you. Also, music. Some of us are activated with dance music, right? It gets us into different energy. Some of us, though, need more relaxation music. Like, know what you need and then activate that and have a plan for it. I'm also a big advocator on taking a night to sleep on it. So when you are in burnout or in acute stress, you want to just go, you want to let everybody know, you want to say you're due, right? But actually, a better way to handle that moment is to just take a moment. And sometimes that needs 8 hours of moments, right? To then come back and respond with a little more calm, because you're in reactive state. And we don't want to be in a place of reactivity. We want to be in a place where we are not emotional reactive, but logic emotion, right? So those are just a few tips. I really want you to pay attention. Is this healthy? Is this chronic? Is this burnout? know what your physical and mental reactions are, and then have a plan to deal with them. I'm Suzanne Castle, creator and founder of the Sparkle Factor. Glad you caught this training Tuesday. Wishing you a day of great joy and life. See you soon.